Guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show on the 20th of October. The programme, as ever, Monday to Friday, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Rough, Darren Jackson and Hugh MacDonald are here with me. The fallout from the Old Firm game continues. You can give us your view if you still have to get something off your chest. A possible breakaway European League, we'll discuss that. Should clubs be awarded 3-0 victories if the other club has players testing positive for COVID? The return of the Champions League, we'll be discussing that as well in the company of our top team. And don't forget to like, share and follow on our Facebook. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell there as well and you'll get notifications on when we're live. And, of course, some of our unique video content. And we've got a competition. We'll be giving you details of that again on tonight's programme. So that big story which was breaking on Sky News was basically, Alan Rough, that there could be 5 clubs in England as part of this breakaway European League. It's apparently FIFA-backed. And the big 5 countries, you'll not be surprised to hear, have clubs that are all involved in it. Now, it's a long way to go, Roughie, but there's no smoke without fire. This is this constant big project, the big picture that they didn't get through, but suddenly it's gathering pace again. It won't go away.
No, I think we've all been talking about it for a while. First of all, it was an Atlantic League, which our clubs might have been part of, but now this one is the big noises, and I'm sure that I think FIFA and UEFA have a lot to say about this. They're not particularly bosom buddies and how it's going to work. But I think the biggest thing that people are thinking about is what happens to the leagues that they leave. You know, how that's handled. And I think the supporters should have a big say in it as well, because they're the ones that are part of the clubs, the big clubs. So it'll be interesting to see how much momentum it grows as the days go by. But certainly from a viewing point of view, it's certainly a bit mouthwatering thinking of all these 16 or 18 teams playing each other in a league.
Yeah, and you touched on something there, FIFA and UEFA, not exactly bosom buddies, to say the least. Now, an alternate competition, Hugh, is something that I think will be bogged down in a legal minefield to get it up and running, first of all. But the second part of this is it's a Karl-Heinz Rummenigge from a couple of years ago when he started the ball rolling. And then suddenly you have so many world businessmen taking over clubs in England that this ball has started to gather a bit of pace.
Absolutely. First of all, Peter, it'd be remiss of me not to I've got to give a couple of shout-outs. I walk through Bannockburn with my grandson on a regular basis, so I get all the punters there. Big viewing. I don't know what your viewing figures are, Peter, but in Bannockburn they seem to be pretty solid. So a shout out to Eddie and Ella. Eddie and Ella stop me and wee Aaron every week in the buggy. I hasten to add that wee Aaron's in the buggy, at least for now. I'm pushing it at least for now, but maybe not forever, but I'm pushing it at least for now. Aye, on to small matters now at the European League. Yeah, 2 things about it, Peter. It's obviously, there's a real intent to do this. There's £4.6 billion worth of JP Morgan source money behind it. There's real detail to it. There's 16 or 18 clubs. That's what it's going to be. It's going to be a home and away basis midweek. There's 12 clubs involved in heavy discussions with it, but obviously others will join in. So the makeup's there. UEFA and FIFA are divided on this, Peter. As you know, UEFA wouldn't want this at all because it just kills their European competitions stone dead. And their European competitions are their greatest revenue. So it kills them. So FIFA, I understand, are more open to it, and they're actually sort of might even be part of it. I know that Infantino, the chief executive there, in the past has talked about this. So there's that. The point you made about obstacles is very good as well, very well put, because there's going to be a lot of obstacles. First of all, they're not going to leave their domestic leagues, Peter. That's not the proposal at the moment. This proposal is for these clubs to stay in their domestic leagues but play these matches midweek. Well, can you imagine the clubs in the domestic leagues that are not involved in that? They're going to be taking legal action. Now, the biggest legal action will be in England because that's where the big muscle is. Because I just asked the viewers to say that there'll be a maximum of 5 English clubs at the moment. If you take it, it's the 2 Manchester clubs, Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea, which I think is a reasonable assumption. It doesn't leave much room for, Tottenham, Everton, Aston Villa, etc., 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 etc. So
well, would you believe Tottenham's one of the clubs quoted?
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be people really elbowing each other aside to get into this because Peter, to finish on this sounds like a 1-hour podcast by Hugh MacDonald, but I'll finish on this one, Peter, is that this is the way it's going. Football's going. This is the way it's going. And everybody, if this bandwagon gets any kind of traction, everybody wants to be on it. Because see, if you're not on it, you're in the dirt. You're in the dirt financially.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, if by hook or by crook Celtic and Rangers managed to get into this, they'd be absolutely delighted. But they'd have to be going with the begging bowl on it. The only thing I would say, as well as it being bogged down, I think it's only a matter of time when this eventually bursts the dam. I think, once the UEFA deal is up in 2024, if they don't again try and move the goalpost to keep the big clubs happy with some sort of new proposal, then, Darren, I think, the dam will indeed burst. My only problem with it all is how can you play your domestic football and offer any confirmation that you are going to be entering a totally different competition regardless of where you finish in that league. And if that league is aligned to UEFA's Champions League, there are so many complex issues to iron out. But listen, if Kerry Packer in the 70s could come up with a circus of players to play cricket, I'm sure footballers can come up with something as well. They did it in 92 with the Premier League, Darren. So businessmen can move mountains and they can also just shut people out and disregard the rules.
Yeah, Peter, it looks as though I've just been watching it and Spurs were in there. There was 12, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Juventus. I can't remember who the other one was in the 6 English clubs. And as you rightly said, they're going to be playing in their normal league. I just think, Peter, it'll be... And those 12 cannot be relegated. The ones that are invited in can be relegated, but initially they cannot be relegated. I just think it's going to be a case of there's going to be massive squads. One will play in the Premier League and one will play in this new league, which is because finances aren't going to be a problem. So would Celtic and Rangers love to be invited into that? Are they big enough? Of course they're big enough to be invited into that, Peter. And I think if they look at nights at Celtic Park and at Ibrox, what they can attract, I think it would be fantastic. And you obviously don't want Celtic and Rangers to ever leave our leagues. But as you've said all along, Peter, you do, and I don't mean you go on about it, but about Rummenigge, just the big clubs want to get greedier and just want all the money. But it's right. I mean, it's hard for the small clubs. And I was watching, as I said, Sky there, and Gary Neville. Obviously, he's in Salford, so he's got an interest further down the leagues. But he's right in what he's saying, that they can come up with 4.6 billion. And there's teams in England, obviously there's teams in Scotland, but we're not involved in this just now. But there's teams in the conference, grassroots, the EFL, that are going to go out of business. And they're coming up with 4.6 billion that money can't drain down and to help those clubs as well. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, well, if life teaches you anything, the needs of a small amount of people far outweigh the needs of the many as far as football's concerned, or many other sports, because greed always takes over. And believe me, you only have to look at what's been happening even in a small country like Scotland over the last 6 months. People with their own interests at heart always seem to come to the fore in these things, and the care and the collective for everyone is not at the forefront of people's minds when they're coming up with these plans. Will it come to fruition? I think there's an inevitability about it. I don't think we can discount it. I think they will push and push until they get their own way. Can I actually just say, and it's because I might as well go through them all, although I would say to Colin Campbell, Colin, I know you're watching on Facebook at the moment. Colin, this is probably not the show for you, because most of the people on here actually realise that it is a programme where we love our football, we work in journalism, and we call it as we see it, and we give a fair assessment, as we did yesterday on the Old Firm game, which was all very positive about Rangers. But from your point of view, your comment really deserves to be on some kind of forum show. If you can get on there, Colin, that would be absolutely magnificent, and you can jump in there with all the other dafties. As far as the banter's concerned, I have to say, Darren, the amount of people, Alec Kelly, who's a big Rangers fan, and Alec comes on and makes good points about his side, and there's lots of Rangers fans coming on giving us all pelters yesterday, Roughie, for some of our predictions, which I think is fair. You know, I held my hands up, I got it wrong, and they're saying it was Darren's coupon burst after his prediction, and they are giving you absolute pelters on here, Darren. You got it wrong as well in the Old Firm game.
Yeah, thankfully I don't bet, Peter, and I never had a coupon on. These things happen. You're asked to make a prediction. You don't always get it right. I predicted Celtic would win the league last year. They did. I predicted the Celtic will win the league this year. I still believe that. They've had a bad game. I mean, yes, people look into it and say Rangers deserve to win. They were the better side, no doubt about it. I don't have any problem with that. But if it's strongest team against strongest team, I think the problem, the players that Celtic brought in, Peter, I've said they're a better 11 and they're a better squad. The players that they brought in, the Klamalas, the Fringpongs, just now, I think are good subs coming on. Celtic do need their strongest team to be the best, but I do think those boys can make an impact when they come on. So when you look at it, they probably had, and people will say, oh, excuses. I'm only saying that Celtic's strongest team, there was probably 5 out that would probably be in that team.
Yeah, it's funny you saying that.
The 5 that came in aren't as strong as that 5, but they're good.
Yeah, I think, Peter, I think in all fairness, in the morning of the game when we did the show, as soon as we heard the Celtic team, we all wanted to change our minds.
Yeah,
you would agree with that.
Listen,
once we heard the team, we wanted to have a wee think about what our projections were, and I think once we heard the team, for whatever reason, we would have all changed our score.
Yeah, strangely enough, and listen, I enjoy the banter because I think if you give a prediction, and that's a great joy of football, Hugh, you give a prediction based on the evidence that's put in front of you, and you can get it wrong because, as I said on many an occasion, you know, regardless of every organisation I've ever worked for, it's guesswork based on what you're looking at. Gordon McFadden, I think he's a Rangers fan, has said, Darren, it's not one bad game. And I think I understand where Gordon's coming from because Celtic have been poor for me since the start of the season. They've been kind of it's almost like a stuttering motor, Hugh, since the start of the season. The only positive I could take out of them was the game against Hibs. So I suggested they would win it. Roughie's right. We actually looked at the team and thought, I think Rangers are going to win this, but we're going to stick by what we said because that's the joy of it all. Darren said he was sticking by Celtic to win, but I don't know about you, Hugh, but I think they've been a stuttering engine since the start of the season.
There's no doubt about that, Peter. There's absolutely no doubt. I mean, it's been a tough start to the season. I think the Ferencváros result was an absolute crushing blow because I know Ferencváros have qualified for the whole set of marbles. I think it's fair to say that the Celtic, not fair to say, it's reasonable to say the Celtic should have beaten Ferencvaros, so that was a Christian result. On the point of punditry, Peter, I'm always amazed at punditry. I'm on the Peter and Roughie show, right? If my punditry was 100% correct, I'd be on a yacht. I'd be on a yacht at the moment, right? Cruising off Antigua, not knowing what COVID was, and frankly not caring. You know, the idea that what you get from punditry is hopefully an insightful view, hopefully an honest and impartial one as well, and a straightforward one. Now, the Celtic thing, the stuttering thing, is what happens now is that I think that was a hugely significant result in Saturday for one reason, is it certainly emboldens Rangers and their support, quite properly so. They're the top of the league. It now asks a real question of Celtic. I would be of the belief, Peter, and I just wonder if the other lads agree, that AC Milan slips so far down the list of priorities as to almost disappear. And Pittodrie looms like a train rushing through a tunnel at the moment. And Celtic at the moment just have to get the thing back on track. And Pittodrie at the weekend is the game they've got to win.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a huge week on it. I think Celtic will lose to AC Milan anyway, Darren. Pittodrie is massive for them.
Of course, that becomes massive now. It's always a big game, the Aberdeen game, but like people are obviously messaging in and all that and saying it's no one bad game. I think Celtic have been on form. No, I don't. Before Saturday, they had the game in hand, they would have been top of the league. Now, Roughie knows, Hugh, if you're not playing that well and you can go top of the league, I wouldn't be happy with it. But God, I'm looking at myself and saying, we've not even started yet. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's one bad performance. It was a really bad performance they've not had a really bad performance on Saturday. But they're still only a point behind, and it's if they win their game in hand. So everyone can look at it negatively, of course they can, but sometimes you've got to be a little bit positive as well and say, well, we've no played to the standards that we expect, but we're not too far away.
Listen, it's all about opinions. You can give us your opinion as well. There's lots of Rangers fans actually talking about the positives of what Rangers have performed this season, and certainly on the evidence of what I watched, I thought they were. Certainly, I can't say it's the best because I thought Rangers battered Celtic in the League Cup final. How they never scored a goal, I will never know to this day. But as far as composed, I think Celtic, with the players that they had out and the way they actually went about the game, I thought Rangers had them in their pocket. Could have been 2, 3, 4. Kent's could have got on the end of what would have been a brilliant move. They played some nice football as well, but I think the way they were set up and the mere fact, Roughie, when they blew the whistle and I saw the Rangers 3 sitting right on the 3 centre halves, and I thought, Steven Gerrard's being positive here. Barker, might not be a top drawer player, but he was speedy. He was closing down. Morelos, I thought, was, did nothing. But Kent, Morelos and Barker occupied the three of them, scurried about, worked hard, and the midfield and Rangers were just dominant. So I thought all the positives were more about, and I thought it was yesterday's show was better to emphasise it, Roughie, was all about what Rangers really did well, rather than people bumping their gums about Celtic. Today it's a slightly different thing because there's another wee caveat we'll discuss in a minute, but it was all about what Rangers did well for me.
No, I think you have to say that the Rangers manager got his tactics spot on. He looked at the strengths of Celtic, particularly at home. Frimpong getting forward, put somebody down the side of him, keep him on the back foot, which happened. Same on the other side as well. His tactics were superb, and they were taking whatever they had in the team talk, everybody to a man actually interpreted what they had to do, what their job was done. And obviously, with the players that Celtic were missing, they took it right till the end. And And I know you're saying, Pierre, it could have been 3 or 4 nothing. I didn't see it that way. I just think Rangers won it comfortably 2-0. And it wasn't like the battering that Rangers gave Celtic in that League Cup that you're talking about. Because as far as I'm concerned, they got two. One was a header for a corner, and the other one was a wee bit fortunate. But they still dominated the game. I'm not disputing that, but it wasn't the battering of the League Cup that Rangers had.
No.
So they did it quite convincingly. And Darren will tell you more than me. Goals change games. In these games, goals change them. I'm not saying Elanussi's flick over McGregor, if it were in, would have meant that Celtic would have got something out of the game, because it didn't go in.
Yeah.
That's a fact. But at the end of the day, Rangers on the day were the better side, and nobody can disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody suggested. I didn't suggest that that this was as big a hiding as the League Cup final. I think I corrected myself on that. David Bell, I think you've got to choose your words carefully, David. Nobody on this programme hates anybody, and to suggest that anybody has a hate for Morelos is just nonsense. I'm just going to keep leathering people who haven't got a brain in their head, by the way. It's just non-stop, some of the vitriolic stuff on Facebook, of all things, where people are known, they're known, and people will know their name and can see their profile. There has to be a bit of decency involved in it. So with that in mind, I think some Celtic fans deserve an absolute caning, and I'm going to get your thoughts on it, Hugh. But Martin O'Neill has come out and defended Neil Lennon and said, he still thinks he'll be the manager winning the 10 in a row. I've been reading and listening to Celtic fans saying Neil Lennon should go. And I'm absolutely gobsmacked. And again, I put them into the category that Gordon Strachan used to tell me about, which was, the 2% who have got no such a thing as loyalty, probably wouldn't know one end of the football from the other, and quite simply have got a knee-jerk reaction to one game, and they're calling for the manager's head. They need to have a long, hard look at themselves if they want to get rid of Neil Lennon after one game. I think these people are just, dafties.
I don't think it's one game though, Peter. I think the momentum is built up over. I think it's the 3 European results: Cluj, Copenhagen, and Ferencvaros have raised real flashpoints over the manager's head.
Do you think he should go?
I don't think so. I think I think that I don't at the moment. If you're a straightforward answer at the moment, no, that's a straightforward answer. But as you know, things change very quickly in Scottish football. If he loses the next couple of games in the league, what happens then, Peter? Would you still think the same, or would you? So at the moment, absolutely no.
But picking up on that point, Hugh, this is the same as what we said at the start of last season as well, when we were looking at managers getting to the end and not winning a trophy. Lots of Rangers fans I know, I said, if Steven Gerrard doesn't win anything this season, at the end of the season, do you sack him? They went, no, we can see progress, so we stick with him. This time, at the start of this season, when everybody was here, we all said, losing manager gets a sack. To a man, I can't think of anybody who didn't say, if Steven Gerrard wins nothing, he's gone. That's the general consensus. So if you're saying to me, if he loses a couple more league games and the league looks as if it's getting away from him, that's a different situation. That's us moving it on, because managers are judged by the results.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was just putting in, at the moment, there's a variety of reasons, not just, there's a whole whack of reasons. And I'll annotate some of them, why Neil Lennon was stay at the moment. One is that he's already proved he could get Celtic over the line in really difficult circumstances. I think underrated how difficult the circumstances were last season. His team has been ravaged by injury, bad luck, etc. There's probably about 6 players that could have been in the team on Saturday. He's also brought in a lot of players who, for a variety of reasons, haven't been able to get up to speed quickly. I mean, I was hearing the criticism of a Yeti, he's not fit yet after so many months. For goodness sake, he's 3 weeks off a hamstring injury. Of course he's not ready for 90 minutes. So So that's another reason in Neil's favour. Another thing as well, it is to all intents and purposes in large terms, he's got a dressing room full of players, and this is the crucial point, full of players where you've got to have a sense of how interested in you are in the 10. How interested are you in the 10? How interested in you staying here? That's a big thing that's outside a manager's ability to shape. Because one thing we know now, Peter, and I'll just finish this, one thing we know now is that in a dressing room, players are the power. It used to be in maybe Darren's day, and certainly in Roughie's day, the managers the power. Power's in the dressing room now. And is anybody surprised that, that Edward didn't play on Saturday, Has anybody implied that Julian didn't play on Saturday? I mean, I don't know the extent of their injuries, but if they were 50-50, I would say they'd be going to say, well, no, I'm going to take care of myself and not play. So he's got that situation to deal with. It's very, very difficult. And the last thing as well, and it's always the thing we always say, if you get rid of Neil Lennon on Tuesday, October the 20th, who are you bringing in on Wednesday, October the 21st?
Yeah, questions that need to be asked. Here's Neil Lennon's record first and second time around.
Celtic manager Neil Lennon has come under fire after Saturday's Old Firm defeat, so let's have a look at his 2 spells in charge. He took over from Tony Mowbray in 2010 and took the team for 227 games, winning 159 matches, a ratio of 70%. He brought in successful players such as Virgil van Dijk, Fraser Forster and Mikael Lustig, but did have some blunders in the transfer market, including Mo Bangura, Amido Balde and Timu Puki. He delivered 2 league titles and 2 Scottish Cups before leaving in 2014. Lennon then returned in 2019 to replace Brendan Rodgers and has won every trophy possible since then, 2 league titles, a Scottish Cup and the Betfred Trophy. He's taken charge of 81 games, winning 64 at a higher ratio of 79%, only losing 8 times. Signings such as Christopher Julien and Jeremy Frimpong have been successes, but there have been question marks over the additions of Bolly Bolingoli, Ismaila Soro and Patrick Klamala. His Celtic side are currently in the Europa League group stage and trail Rangers by 4 points in the league.
Yeah, there you have it, Roughie. All I would say to you, Roughie, is picking up on what Hugh has just mentioned there. I think if any of the anger should go anywhere inside Celtic Park, it is to the players. I think some of them have got their own agenda. They want to play for themselves and where they think they should be playing in the future. And I think that's the problem. And slowly but surely, he needs to weed out a couple of what I would call rotten apples.
Yeah, and I think another thing that goes against Neil is possibly his honesty. We saw it at Hibs when he wasn't happy. He just called out the players. He's called out the players at Celtic, the ones that don't want to be there. And some fans can't handle that, but he's honest. He's honest in letting the fans know what he's not happy with. He was saying at the weekend, he came out about the team being leaked. A lot of managers wouldn't have come out with that. They'd have kept that in-house. But that's the way he is. He's a fans manager. The fans that get behind him want to hear these kind of things. But the record there speaks for itself. You could argue, obviously, Europe should have been a wee bit better, things like that. But the be-all and end-all is 10 in a row. All that record's going to go out the window. It's 10 in a row. That's all the supporters are interested in. They're not interested in the past. It's this year and it's 10 in a row, and that's what they need to get. And that's what the pressure is for Neil Lennon.
And not only Neil Lennon, strangely enough, the chief executive will live with that like a noose around his neck, Darren, if he doesn't deliver it, because apart from anything else, hand in hand with the manager's failings has to be, on more than a few occasions, time and time again, you look at European failures when they were crying out for certain players. And that's the type of thing that fans look back on. They'll turn around and say, should have signed this player that was crying out for it before a big game, lost it, Ferencvaros, at Cluj, as Hugh mentioned as well. These things come back to bite you in the back end. And of course, the other ultimate thing is everybody in the board always gets it if you fail in this year of all years, because nobody wants that failure on the record.
Of course, Peter, it's happened a few times, and there's been criticism a few times about making signings after they've gone out to Europe, and that's probably the big disappointment. I don't know if Neil's they've got the recruitment department in there Neil will probably have his hand in there and saying who he likes and who he doesn't like and all that. So that's probably the European campaigns have probably been a huge disappointment because they expect it at Celtic. Now this year, if you were to ask the fans, would you rather a run in the Champions League or would you rather 10 in a row? They would rather 10 in a row. And going back to should he be sacked, Peter? Wim Jansen should have been. They wanted his head after 2 games when I was there. We lost to Hibs and we lost to Dunfermline at home, and everybody wanted Wim sacked because he didn't know what it was about. Yep. Lenny knows what it's about. Now it's getting through to the players, and you're right. If players do have an agenda in there, Neil will not take fools gladly. He'll pick them out and he'll tell them. And I think Scott Brown as a captain, I'll have a say as well. So I don't think there'll be a problem. Talking about, yes, I can go back to Rangers' tactics were brilliant they were great. They did everything correctly. But when Neil probably doesn't get a lot of credit for his tactics, but when they came back after the year last year, after again, they were battered by Rangers on the 29th of December, he knew he had to change it. He knew he had to get the 2 players up front. So tactically, he changed it and it worked. So give him a little bit credit for that as well.
Yeah, and I can remember that 98 season, Hugh. I don't know if you remember it. I think I was at STV. And after the second game that Celtic lost, I said, you've got to get Jackson and Larsson out. They're just two bad apples. Get them out of the team and sack the manager as well.
And did they take long before Jackson was out?
Peter, I was more on the ball. I said, I quite fancy this guy Jackson, but this Larsson's a charlatan. I mean, when we're talking about the situation at the moment, you've got to remember that this is, it's so highly charged at the moment that is what's swinging perceptions and decisions, and it's highly charged because of this 10 in a row that's hanging over the club. Celtic can feel they can reach out and touch it. Rangers can feel that they've got the axe and they can just cut it in half. So it's added incredible amount of attention to what is there already. I mean, if you talk about Neil Lennon domestically, I think is that his second game he's lost in a calendar year in the league. But the reality is that when people look at Celtic and Rangers, the emotion, the power of that, the power of the drive to get this thing takes over. And what Neil Lennon needs, and he doesn't need me to tell because he knows the score more than I do. He needs a couple of nice wins in the league, everyone's settling down again, going to Pittodrie, winning, going to Hibs, beating Aberdeen, and everything gets a bit calmer. And what it does, it allows him. And Darren's talking about his tactics. Now, it's a great point. I think Neil Lennon's tactics of Celtic, and Darren, I'd be interested in Darren's views in this and Roughie's as well. That 3-5-2 is really predicated on his 2 front players being really positive and making good runs and being aggressive. And if you've got Edouard and Griffiths, that really is a powerful formation. If you've got a young Polish under-21 striker with Elianusi, maybe it's not as strong and it's not as powerful. So I think, what will be crucial to Celtic's season is not so much Neil Lennon's tactics or anything else. It will be, can he get Edward back into a Celtic shirt and get him back firing? Can he get Griffiths back into a Celtic shirt and get him fit and firing? Can James Forrest come back quickly as well and give him a real option on the right-hand side of a 5 where he doesn't have to play maybe Frimpong is always... I mean, Frimpong's a smashing young player and will be a very good one. It gives him a bit of cover there. Can he get X, Y, and Z, Christie, Hamed, all these guys back and fit and firing very, very quickly? And that could change the season for Celtic.
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting stuff, and thank you to the countless people who are joining us and putting the point across, and lots of really good points as well. And Jamie Taylor says, can you give me a shout out? I watch it on YouTube, and is there a chance you can get Darren Jackson subbed? So I think what's happened, Darren, is they've built up yesterday. They were on in the thousands. Because obviously they want to absolutely batter you for your comments. But that's the good thing about it. I mean, the joy of it all is quite simply, it's all about opinions, like them or love them along the way.
All about predictions. I predicted that Celtic would win. There were some Rangers fans saying Rangers would win 4-0. So that they're wrong, just as I'm wrong.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. Listen, at the end of the day, it's calling the game as you see it, and as it unfolded. Look at Roughie with his wee smiling face here. He's just happy the Rottweiler never attacked him on Saturn when the two Rangers fans had the dug outside Celtic Park. It was really funny. Anyway, apart from anything else, the joy of the Old Firm game, we try and keep a sense of perspective, a sense of balance. I just think some of the criticism towards Neil Lennon is an absolute joke after one game. I think, you can be a tactical genius after one game and a dud the next. That's the way it goes in Glasgow. And this season of all seasons, when it becomes really poisonous, and believe me, I've said it since the start of this season as well, it will become really poisonous to an extent, but hopefully on this programme, across our Twitter, our Facebook and our YouTube, we will try and keep a balance and more than a few chances to win competitions and prizes as well with the teams that you support. So stay with us on that. Would you award a 3-0 win, Roughie, to any team that has to have the game called off because the other team has COVID?
I would like to think the option would be, as Arnold did, that you had the opportunity to field a team. And I would like to think that most senior clubs in that division have enough youth players or under 21s who are possibly not in the first team to put an 11 out. So I would give the opportunity of fielding any kind of 11. I'd rather
I think that was just as Roughie was about to make one of the finest points of his time on the programme, Hugh. 9 years we've waited for it, and then suddenly cut him off. I mean, that could have been who was the man in the grassy knoll. We'll never know now.
Exactly. We've got 9 years of never given an opinion, and now we know it's definitely 10 in a row. Definitely 10 in a row. He's not giving an opinion. I think he was, some Peter, this might shock you, that's probably why the internet stopped working. I think he was edging towards a really good point. I mean,
steady now. Steady now.
There he's back. I can hear what you're saying.
Hey, give us that. Let's see if Hugh is right, Roughie. What was the really good point you were going to make?
I thought the really good point was enough of the Premier League clubs have got enough players to field 11 and possibly 3 or 4 substitutes. And I think they should be given that chance to do that rather than just say, you're getting a 3-0 defeat. And I'm sure a lot of the clubs would go along with that. It gives us a chance to see some young players that you maybe wouldn't see in a one-off game, and it'll bring their game on as well.
Yeah, because the last thing we can have... Yeah, exactly. Well, I couldn't believe it. Roughie made a fantastic point. You missed it, Darren. But basically, he called for your removal from the programme and nobody argued with him. I was going to ask you, Darren, just on Roughie's point there, I don't think we can sustain a situation where there's a constant backlog of games, because we've already got the SPFL putting out the questionnaire to the 42 clubs. They are now setting the wheels in motion, saying, listen, if this gets any worse than it is at the moment, then this league might need to be called again in the future, which is something that I think they want to try and avoid.
Yeah, I obviously missed it, Peter. I heard you asking Roughie about the 3-0. Do you think it should be? I think that's wrong. I mean, to a team, if you've got injuries, you've got injuries. But with COVID, it's totally different. And I think you're right. I think I saw someone saying the other day there that they've had a meeting about if the league has to be called. I thought they would have done that at the start of the season. After all the chaos of last year, I thought they would have sat down and said, right, if anything happens, if we have another spike and the league has to be called, this is what's going to happen. I'm surprised that nothing's in place already, Peter.
But they did, Darren. They did ask the clubs. SPFL did ask the clubs to come up with, give them the license to come up with something, and the clubs said no.
No, right,
Clubs just volleyed it.
I can't believe that. Is that because there was a massive fallout and no one wanted to speak to each other, Peter?
What with regards to the vote?
Yeah, yes.
Well,
to see if
you only have to look at the evidence of what went on before to know that we are on the same track and the same train wreck. If this disease was to catch hold again, Hugh, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that there are no lessons learned in Scottish football.
Absolutely bang on, Peter. Absolutely bang on. See, I heard, on Twitter there was, there's a lot of Neil Doncaster haters out there, and I'm not one of them. He's a functionary, and he's come out and he sent a questionnaire. Everybody's laughing, laughing emojis going everywhere. Oh, the SPFL, chief exec is sending out questionnaires. What else can he do? He said to the clubs, listen, at the beginning of the season, see if a season's got to be called, leave it up to the board. You okay with that? They said no. And that was well within their rights to do so, particularly after, some clubs smarting over, the SPFL board over the way last season was called. So that's fine. So then he goes back to them and says, well, what would you do? Can you come up with any wee plans, please, for what you would do? Silence, absolutely. You could hear the rustle in the woods because of the silence. So he's actually pressurising them now and saying, listen, you're going to come up with something. I think we've talked about it. We're at the stage now in Scottish football where we've got clubs with 5 or 6 people with COVID. That's not going to get any better in the short term, is it? I mean, we're talking about locking down cities at the moment. Are somehow football clubs going to be, inoculated against this virus? So they're going to have to come up with a plan, and they're going to have to come up with it soon. But I think, Peter, this is going to be a really difficult thing to sort out. And I think it's like as you say, I think that was a great metaphor about the train crash.
Yeah, and the other thing about it as well, Roughie, as you well know, if they were to call the league this week, Celtic with a game in hand, but Rangers crucially 4 points ahead, Roughie. Now, sporting integrity, none of your shenanigans, still a point.
Yeah, I can see. I agree with what he's saying about Neil Doncaster, but can you imagine Neil Doncaster on the board? They'll be absolutely panicking just now. Absolutely panicking, and in case they have to make some kind of decision. That's why they're saying, here, you make it. We don't want anything to do with it.
Well, the other thing about it as well, which we have to put into perspective here is I have to say the any team suffering from players being out with a positive test in COVID. And the reason why I mentioned the madness of what's gone on elsewhere and what's gone on over the last 6 months is backed up by St Mirren, who've just released a statement. They are complaining bitterly. They've written to Alan Burrows at Motherwell about statements made by Maurice Ross on a BBC Scotland podcast. And Ross obviously expressing an opinion cast doubt on the reasons for St Mirren seeking COVID-related cancellation of Saturday's clash between the two clubs. Tony Fitzpatrick saying he's disappointed at the comments, in particular the suggestion that we or any other football club would take advantage of this pandemic for personal gain. Any notion that we've been opportunistic in seeking to discharge our public health responsibilities is a fallacy. So we and all the football clubs in Scotland try to navigate our way through these difficult times. So they're not happy with Maurice Ross's comments. And again, it's just one, just quite simply, it's just one in a number of things that happen over the the course of the last 6 months where people are suggesting things for personal gain. No club, Hugh, wants to be in a situation where they try and think we can get 3 points off the back of somebody else's misfortune.
Well, that's certainly a valid viewpoint, but the other viewpoint is the one that the clubs can be are at it over. All these clubs will have documentation of failed tests, Peter. I mean, this is not somebody saying I've got a chesty cough and can't come to work today and self-certificating. This is guys who are failing tests. Right, the SPFL will be able to go to Paisley today and say, right, who's failed the test? 10. Can we see the certificates by a doctor that they have failed a test? Of course you can. Here they are. Here's the test here. So, but what it does, I think what Maurice Ross's intemperate comments does emphasise is this atmosphere, Peter, that COVID is going to cause in the Scottish football community going forward, because this league's been called, 3-0 victories being bestowed from on high. All these are circulating already around a season, which is hugely difficult. We concentrate on Celtic and Rangers for an obvious reason, because it's our they're the biggest clubs in Scotland, and that's our viewership, and a massive viewership will be interested in that. But it's got implications for every club. There's clubs down at the bottom of the league now. That's as tight as can be for clubs getting, if they call it, to be relegated. There's clubs. The championship season has just started as well, so there's huge implications there. So this is a looming story, and it's a story which Scottish football clubs, in their own way, and fans have to realise this. They just can't turn round and sort of start slaughtering Neil Doncaster and the SPFL board about this. This is something that they have tried very, very hard to resolve, to come up with some kind of protocols. I think we were on the first programme of the season, Peter. You and I were saying there has to, before we even kick a ball here, there has to be a protocol of what do we do if the season's called. That has to be set in stone, so that before a ball's kicked, everybody knows the way forward. And the fault with that doesn't lie with Doncaster or Neil Doncaster, and it doesn't lie with Murdo McLennan, and it doesn't lie with the SPFL board. It lies with the clubs, because they weren't motivated enough to come up with something. I see that, Darren, that's silence, Peter. The first time in my life I've actually silenced Peter Martin.
Come on, Roughie.
Roughie.
You can't keep a good man down. He'll be back in a minute.
But I was just saying, Roughie, as well. What would about in the smaller clubs? What's the smaller clubs' views of calling seasons?
Well, I don't think we're there yet, Hugh. I think as this Betfred manifests himself, I think we'll start getting problems. I think the teams where the part-time clubs who haven't been testing will fall foul somewhere down the line. So just we have to wait and see what the magnitude of that is, because I know what all the other clubs have been doing testing-wise, and it is really thorough in everything that they're doing. So the fault for me would be in the clubs that unfortunately haven't got the money to test.
And Roughie, you've also silenced Peter today as well. So this is going well. The viewership will now be saying, right, boys, bring on the great points, so that Peter Martin doesn't have to say it again.
No, what he's trying to dub us now. He's trying to make a mess of our mics. Think he's back? No, I think he's still away. I think he's still going.
Yes, still away.
Anyway, what are you up to this weekend?
I wouldn't mind going up to Arbroath and Hearts Just if I can get the scouts ticket to go and see
Yeah,
that.
I think it would be a wee culture shock to Hearts if they were to go up there and there was a blowing a gale and the waves are coming out of the water broth. I think that would be something that some of the Hearts players would have to get to. You know what, a rule I noticed the other day, Dan, and I don't know if you know this rule, and Hugh, I don't know if you know the rule as well. I noticed that our game, Partick Thistle versus Clyde. Now, you've seen with the senior games that when a ball goes out the park, there are balls all over the park.
Yeah.
You have to request that. You have to fill in a form to request that. Clyde, for whatever reason, never requested for. Obviously, there's the sort of a sanitisation of the balls going out the park and back on. So you've got to spray them and wipe them. But Clyde never applied for that law. So all we had was one ball for 90 minutes. So every time the ball got kicked away, we had to wait that ball came back. Jeez, and every time it disappeared, the player had to go into the stand to get it. It was ridiculous.
I thought that was all down to protocol, that you needed to sanitize. I thought the balls they weren't getting sanitised all the time, but you had to have them round the ground, that if they did go out to play, there was another sanitised ball there ready to bring in. I thought that was protocol, Roughie.
Yeah, but no, you have to request it. You have to request to get that in play, that there are balls all around the park. You either do that or you go with one ball for the whole game. So you can imagine in a game of football how many minutes that ball's out of play.
I know.
That was an excuse of any man. I'm not making it an excuse. Clyde deserved their win. There's no doubt about that. But trying to find one ball for 90 minutes was just, it was horrendous.
Wow. I can't believe it. I go off the show for 2 minutes and he suddenly gets it on to Clyde Partick Thistle. I mean, honestly, how did you allow him to browbeat you down that road?
Well, the thing was, Peter, the thing was that you've been off the air for 3 minutes, and we've now got an Ofcom inquiry because Roughie has been talking about sanitised balls for the last 3 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, apart from anything else, I did mention, and I know Niall Kane says, Pedro, you need Charlie Adams' Wi-Fi. I did notice a number of people, and I would like to say to a number of people, thank you very much for your very positive. Peter's, I'm giving you a straight red card today, says Gary McGurn. Gary, I'm happy with that. Anyway, apart from anything else, thanks to everyone. Billy Ingalls made a point there, which I think is probably indicative of the way sometimes this programme can go. When basically Billy Ingalls on Facebook says, is this the Tarrier PLZ show? And that is the type of poison you have to deal with on this programme on a regular basis. So, Billy, you could just go elsewhere because we'll be banning you because this programme is about people who've either played the game or are journalists. And I must admit, it makes me want to vomit having to put up with some of the... And I apologise to people who are on our programme who watch it and pass comment on their football team, but that is a poison which we have to deal with on this programme on a regular basis, which I think is absolutely gut-wrenching and despicable. Champions League, guys, to look forward to. Here's some of the points that you need to look forward to with regards to 5 key points that Gabriel Antoniazzi has been looking into.
The Champions League returns today, just 58 days after Bayern Munich lifted the famous trophy in Lisbon. Here's 5 things to look out for in this season's competition. 5. There are several newcomers in this year's group stage. Lazio make their first appearance in 12 years, whilst it's 25 for Hungarian side Ferencváros. Istanbul Başakşehir and FC Midtjylland make their first ever appearances. 4. RB Leipzig reached the semi-finals last year, and there are plenty of teams vying to be this season's dark horses. Ajax and Marseille will fancy their chances of reaching the knockout stages, whilst Borussia Dortmund have some of the best young attackers in the world. Sevilla should never have been written off in Europe, and of course, Julian Nagelsmann's men will try again. 3. How will the English teams fare this time round? Liverpool and Manchester City believe they can go all the way whilst balancing a Premier League title challenge. Chelsea have an easy enough group, but the same can't be said for Manchester United, who face PSG and Leipzig early on. 2. Can European giants make amends for dismal showings last campaign? Real Madrid haven't got past the last 16 since they won it 2 years ago, whilst Barcelona were humiliated in the final 8 in August. Juventus have Cristiano Ronaldo, but winning the tournament may come too early for novice coach Andrea Pirlo. 1. Can the favourites Bayern Munich defend their trophy? They lifted a stunning treble in the summer and thoroughly deserved it. They've lost the influential Thiago but added Leroy Sané to their squad and are still the team to beat.
Champions League, it would be great to see Celtic and Rangers involved in that. Darren, it's just not to be. That's not the level where we are in Scottish football at the moment.
We're not, Peter, but I mean, it gets labelled at us quite a lot. But when you look at the money that the English clubs and the German clubs get, Peter, it's hard to compete. Yes, we say teams coming to Celtic Park and coming to Ibrox. The fans give you that. They do give you that 12th man, and you hear from players that have played all over Europe saying coming to those two stadiums, it's amazing, and that's what can. You look to Celtic and Rangers to win their home games, because going away from home makes it very hard. But finances play a huge part, Peter. But if you're talking about one of in my opinion, the favourites must be Bayern Munich. When you've got a guy like Lewandowski. He scored 102 goals in his last 100 games for Bayern Munich. It's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you've gone early for Bayern Munich on this one. Here's the fixtures on offer. Chelsea against Seville, Rennes against Krasnodar, which is a game, Roughie, that if I stray upon that game, I'll be absolutely gobsmacked. Zenit St. Petersburg against Bruges, Lazio Borussia Dortmund, which will obviously catch Hugh's eye, Dynamo Kiev Juventus, Barcelona Ferencvaros, Paris Saint-Germain against Manchester United, and Leipzig against Istanbul. I think Paris Saint-Germain against Man United, Roughie, for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to hang in with them again this year. I know Bayern are the big favourites, but no, I like the way they play. They went quite far last year, so I'm going to hang in with them. Quite like them.
Peter,
here's a good point.
Nobody will be putting any money on Bayern Munich because my predictions are terrible.
Well, of course, and no sooner had you said that than about 12 Germans come on and says, no, stop him. Ian Laurie says, let's remember, and Ian, this is a good point, I'll take this on board. Ian Laurie says, let's remember that Celtic were put out by Ferencvaros. Their squad know better, they have no more money, it's purely down to management. And this is a point that Hugh mentioned earlier on the programme. He cannot get away from the defeat against Ferencvaros. Cluj was painful as well for Celtic fans, and of course an Old Firm defeat. There's nothing like it in Scotland, because some of the points we've had on here very positive towards Rangers. A lot of Rangers fans on singing the praises of Steven Gerrard, and rightly so, after a win, and a convincing win, I think it's fair to say, in that game against Celtic. But it's all about opinions. That's what we value on here. So there's a game tonight. Predictions, Roughie. We are neck and neck, but Tam is way out in front at the moment. I'm going to go 3-0 to Aberdeen against Hamilton. What about you, Roughie?
I've went 2-0, but I'm really worried about this game, because I think if we all remember, Hamilton have went up to Aberdeen in a midweek game and coming away with a win twice. So I'm not going to be dismayed by that, but see if it turns round, I'll be really gutted. So I'm going to go Aberdeen 2-0.
Hugh?
Well, it's all about opinions. I'm actually, as you know, booked for the last Hamilton game of the season if they stay up and they allow fans in for a public humiliation. Marcus Nash, the press officer, has actually constructed a set of stocks for them to throw rotten vegetables at me because I had the temerity to say that Hamilton would go down. Having said that, I've got no skin in the game. I'm not in the league. I'm in the league below. You and Tam and Roughie are in the Champions League of punditry. I'm in the league below. But I would say, I think Hamilton, a wee sneaky bet here, I think Hamilton could get a draw tonight.
And that is why you're in the league below. I'm only waiting. I'm waiting up. Darren, what's your prediction?
I'm going to go with Roughie. I think it'll be 2-0. I think Aberdeen are starting to get a little bit momentum. They're getting players back as well. So I just think it'll be too much for Hamilton tonight. So I'm going 2-0.
Oh, and by the way, at that point, Darren, the minute you opened your mouth there, about 500 messages, people absolutely piling their cash on Aki's to win that one. Is there any chance you could give us the Aberdeen team, Darren? Because there's big speculation that you could be the mole here. Everybody wants to know who the mole is. I don't know. There's been a mole forever and a day in Old Firm games. I don't know why there's a fixation with the latest mole. It's madness.
Neil come out with that, Peter, and he must have an idea who it is. Roughie was
absolutely.
But so it's done now. They'll get on with it.
Listen, absolutely. Any chance of the players who are picked just playing on the park? I know that's the opinion of more than a few people, regardless of what the team lineup is. Alec Kelly, I think it's Alec's birthday today, but he says, Peter, any chance that Darren can feature on the next Paddy Power video? So clearly your predictions and punditry has them all over you today. I've never actually witnessed as many of them. Cosgrove's back on the bench, says Robert McLeod, which I think is great news because, it's great to see him back playing for Aberdeen, hopefully, in this game and beyond, because he's a real threat. He gives them something a wee bit different, to be perfectly honest with you. Hey, listen, Hugh Duff, who's a big Rangers fan, says, Peter, I've seen the Celtic team for the game against Milan 2 days ahead. Who would deny you? Who would say you're telling lies there, Hugh? You never know. You might have it. Hugh Hepburn Duff might be the mole. We do not know. Ian Noble's a big Dons fan, and he says Cosgrove will be back. Fingers crossed. John Donald, great show again. See you all tomorrow, says John. And I couldn't have put it better myself, John. We value the majority of people on here who are football fans. Don't forget, we've got the small matter of a competition with some great prizes. You could win all these fantastic prizes by entering our competition. If you like what you see, you can share it with your friends and you can follow us for all the latest breaking football news. Join the football family at PLZ Soccer on Facebook and you could win all these fantastic prizes. Yep, some Prince t-shirts and of course an iPad as well. It's an ideal wee Christmas present for you. I had an iPad once. I gave it to Hugh MacDonald. It's as simple as that. And there's no way.
If it's any consolation, it's the nicest coaster I've ever had here.
Absolutely, Hugh. It's the best thing I've done with that iPad. So anyway, on that note, Roughie, so many people complimenting you bringing back your country and western shirt. The people on here have been saying absolutely fantastic. You've got the Glenn Campbell greatest hits out, and you've put the shirt on to compliment it as well. Well done, Roughie. I haven't seen that shirt since we started 9 years ago when you laughed and the whole studio used to move with us.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll keep it on for tomorrow, and I'll have the hat to go with it for everybody who wants to tune in.
Well, the mere fact that you said you'll keep it on for tomorrow brings back memories because you used to wear it for 6 days on the trot. I mean, Hugh and I used to actually put our chairs 5 feet away from you.
The last time I saw that shirt, Peter, Al Pacino came out the toilet and shot 2 guys sitting at the table with that shirt as a cloth.
That's exactly it. You're showing your age now. Roughie and his line dancing, says Andy Phillips. Let's not talk the line dancing. Listen, Darren, you are the main culprit today. It's always good when the heat is off everybody else on the show, but you're absolutely right. It's all about opinions.
One prediction. What
no? I know, but it's that prediction. That's the one.
Anyway,
five nothing was outrageous.
Listen, it tells you how big a game it is that people they hang on to every word you say and they want to ram it down your throat. That's fine. Yeah. We're here to make predictions. I can accept that. Celtic were deservedly beaten by Rangers. Rangers were by way the better team. But it's a long season.
And on that note, thanks for watching, everyone.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.